Education in Germany is tuition-free, accessible, and generally of good quality. But like all good things in Germany, the education system comes with some complexities. In this video, we're going to shed some light on the education system in Germany. Hey, my name is Jen and I'm from Guatemala.
And mine is Yvonne and I'm German.
And together we're from Simple Germany, where we create English content to help internationals settle into life in Germany more smoothly.
Additional to this YouTube channel, we also run our website simplegermany.com. There we have written in-depth guides on topics that we don't cover on YouTube that might also be interesting and helpful for you. So please check it out.
The heart of the education system in Germany is the public school system.
Right. So, and here comes already the very first big disclaimer, because the public school system in Germany is not like managed or arranged by the federal government, however, by each state itself. So there are 16 different school systems in Germany. That being said, there are quite some big differences depending on where you live in Germany. However, there are enough commonalities that we will highlight in this video.
Okay, so you're telling me that these commonalities are kind of like the backbone of the education system in Germany?
Correct, yes. Like the education ministers of each state sit together like several times a year, where they discuss the curriculum and the like must-haves and kind of like what they agree upon.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
And then each state has their own little
like spin-off out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So to keep things as simple as possible, we have divided the education system into 4 stages.
Right.
So let's start with the first stage, which might be the simplest to explain, but not the simplest to do.
I would disagree.
And the first one is the famous kindergarten or kita.
Well, I would say the preschool, right?
Preschool, yeah.
And kindergarten or kita, exactly, there's a little bit of a difference. Pretty much it is not part of the public school system in Germany, and it needs to be arranged and taken care of by the parents individually. And
so paid by the parents individually.
Yeah, the paid part we will get into.
Okay.
Because there's a differentiation.
Okay, yeah.
But just to point out that in Germany, for example, the daycare, like a full daycare, usually only goes until 4 p.m. also.
Yeah.
Only kind of like got introduced in the past decade, really. And only since 2013, actually, parents have the right for a spot in a kita, which is a short for Kindertagesstätte, short for child daycare.
Yeah.
Starting from age 1. So that has only been like a decade.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And before that, actually, since like I think the 1990s, you had the right for a kindergarten spot starting from the age of 3. That meant that usually until the age of 3, traditionally speaking, the mother stayed home.
Yeah, or the father, because you have
traditionally speaking.
Yes,
that's
okay,
what I said.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Because we're still in the 90s, that's still traditionally speaking.
Okay, that's cool. So I have also heard and read that even though you're guaranteed a spot either in the kindergarten or kita, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the spot in the place you want.
Exactly.
Which sometimes means that it's not going to be close to your work or close to your home.
Right. So this is actually like the kita spot, I would say, is the most difficult spot to get because there are not enough places, not enough caretakers, and luckily enough babies. So just to give you an example, the kita spots, like children from the age of 1 to 3, only 35% of all children in Germany actually attend a kita as such. That is quite little. Compared to the kindergarten, typically aged 3 to 6 years old, 92% of all children in Germany attend the kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
And there is a very big explanation for it because we take the example of Düsseldorf. The kindergarten in Düsseldorf from age 3 to 6 is free of charge. So it is kind of supported publicly, although it is not mandatory.
Okay, that's interesting.
Whereas, and also I remember when I went to kindergarten from 3 to 6, and that was also free.
Okay.
And it is a half day only, so it's typically like from morning hours 8ish, 7ish, depending, until 12 or 1ish.
Okay.
Whereas the kita, where you could already send your child from age 1 usually, is usually charged, so you need to pay for it.
Okay.
And it tends to be full day meaning like again until 4 p.m.
Yeah, or as early as 7 sometimes, right? But as late as 4 p.m.
Correct, right.
Okay.
So of course, if you want both parents to be employed, the kita is the way to go. Hence, you pay for it because you have 2 salaries. Hence, there is a big demand and there's few spots.
Oh, that's very interesting. So 35% not only is maybe because of the price, also it's very hard to find a kita place, we have learned from friends.
Correct.
Which, to the extent that people tell you should already start looking for kitas even before you get pregnant, if that's your plan to have kids, right?
Some kitas allow you to go on the waiting list for children born in 2029.
Wow, that is so crazy.
That is crazy, yeah. The costs for the kita varies by municipality, so not even by state, but literally where you live.
Okay.
And the average cost per year for preschool care was around 1,310 euros.
Okay, per year.
In 2017.
Okay,
so
however...
that is quite okay.
Yeah. However, the price of the kita also it depends on how much you earn, how much you pay, right?
Depending on your municipalities, but a lot of them handle it that way.
Yeah, so for example, we found an example for Düsseldorf. If you earn a gross salary of 60,000 euros a year, that means that per week, a kita might charge you 200 euros.
With 35 hours of caretaking. So the price depends on how many hours and how much you earn, at least in Düsseldorf. And 200 euros per week.
I think that's a lot.
800 a month.
Yeah.
So here we're definitely not by the average of 1,310.
Yeah. So again, it really highly depends on the municipality.
Right.
Which is super interesting.
Yeah. And for the kita, most often or not, you need to literally contact them yourselves to get the spot. So it really is a hustle, kind of like a job interview.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that depends on municipality, because in the case of Düsseldorf, you need to log or register officially through this like Kita Navigator app, and then through there you can contact the kita, so you're not like allowed technically to contact them directly.
I would still do that.
Yeah, again, it depends really on the municipality, because again, every single city handles this completely different. Yep. So make sure to do some research on that, because we cannot cover like all this. It's not only by state, it's by city. It's so crazy. Yeah. Okay, so from 3 to 6, okay, so that's like the tough, I said simple to explain, but not easy to implement in theory, at least the kita part. But kindergarten is not as hard to find in a spot, right?
We've never heard really trouble for kindergarten, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is just a bigger offering also, a lot more public, or from the churches.
Yeah.
So we have not heard from our friends, and we have plenty of friends with babies and kids, and that they have issues with kindergarten.
True, it's mainly the kita problem, yeah. So now let's jump to the second stage of the public education system, which this is the official start of a mandatory school attendance, and that is the primary school.
Correct, which in German we call Grundschule.
So and ground school.
Basic school.
Basic school. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So as you just pointed out, it is a mandatory school attendance in Germany that starts at the age of 6 and goes until the age of 15. Oh. Why do we have mandatory school attendance? It is to allow any child, pretty much, regardless of the family's financial, economic, social, or religious background, to get proper education. That also means that homeschooling is illegal in Germany.
Okay.
Like, you cannot do that. So traditionally speaking, the Grundschule primary school has 4 grades. Grade 1 to grade 4.
However,
here comes one of the exceptions from the states like Brandenburg and Berlin. They have 6 grades in the Grundschule.
Okay, but it's still the Grundschule.
It's still the
primary
Grundschule,
school.
pretty much. Exactly, yes. And it goes half a day, so typically from around 8 a.m. until around noon or 1 p.m.
What I have found super interesting is that actually parents can choose the primary school where the kids can attend to. We know from other countries that if you live in a certain area or a certain zip code, then you're only bound to the schools in that area or in that radius. But here, you can pretty much send your kid to whatever school you choose.
Exactly, yeah. And to be honest, like, I actually went to 2 different primary schools, and one that my parents had to take me to, and the other one I was able to walk to. And yes, in Germany, if it is, of course, in a walkable distance, as kids in primary school, you walk to your school, maybe the first 1, 2, 3, 4 times with your parents, and then alone or with other kids if they live on your same walking path, and that is quite normal. We don't have a typical school bus.
Ah, that is true. And the school buses that you do see, I would say they're not like these yellow buses. Also in Guatemala, we have these yellow buses for school buses. We're very highly influenced by the US, obviously. But here, the school buses that you do see, they look like kind of public buses.
Exactly. They are public buses. They're just used for a school bus situation, which is not the typical, I pick you up on your route and I drop you off there. It's more like for a special thing or something like that.
Ah, okay. Oh, wait, that's interesting. So if you have a school that maybe it's not so close to you and there's no public bus that picks you up in the route, then how do you get to school if you can't walk there?
Your parents take you, you go with friends, or I don't know, maybe in some areas in Germany you actually do have a school bus.
Yeah, okay. Please let us know. That would be super interesting to find out. Yeah, because in Guatemala you do have like a school that picks you up actually like almost in front of your house, kind of. And they do a route based on where the kids live.
Well, typically I would say you choose a school that is close to where you live.
Yeah, ideally, right?
So at the end of primary school, so at grade 4, you usually get, you as a parent, well, and the kid, usually get a letter of recommendation from the main teacher telling you kind of like what kind of continued education, what path your child should go on.
And here comes the very complex part of the education system in Germany. Please continue.
So this recommendation, I mean, the word says it. It is a recommendation that parents can choose to follow, but they don't have to. Oh, okay. And I already, it's a little bit, some parents follow it, some don't. It has some stigma to it because the path of the kid kind of like defines in a little bit the education that the child will get long term.
Okay, so here is where the thing splits into 1,000 variations. Again, to keep things very simple, we will talk very briefly about each kind of track or path that could be recommended and what each one represents.
Correct.
Okay. Each path belongs to the third stage of the education system, which is secondary school.
Correct. Or in German, weiterführende Schule.
Wow.
Like the continued school.
Okay. And within this, you have 3 main tracks that you can take, right?
Correct, yes. So the 3 main tracks are called, or the schools pretty much, are called Hauptschule, Realschule, and Gymnasium. And no, not gymnasium like the sports school. No, it's like the actual name of the school itself, Gymnasium.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first one, which is the Hauptschule.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So the Hauptschule starts at grade 5 and goes until the grade 9, which typically a student has the age of 15, which ends the mandatory compulsive school attendance.
Okay. So could the kid at 15 leave school and start working?
Yes. And that's what we're going to get into now. So the Hauptschule is the lowest or less challenging education track in German education. And that means that students mainly get prepared for further training afterwards for crafts and trade jobs and the typical German Ausbildung.
Okay.
Meaning students are from that grade from Hauptschule cannot go to university.
Okay. So instead of of a more academic or intellectual job, they might have a more crafts or tradesman's person job.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So the degree that you finish that you get from Hauptschule is the Hauptschulabschluss, or that's also called the Berufsreife. Beruf is like a profession, and Reife means the ripeness. So you're literally ripe to learn a profession.
Okay.
So the famous German Ausbildung, the apprenticeship or vocational training, typically lasts 2 to 3 years, and is which you would then continue after you finish the secondary school. And you typically are in a company where you learn the trade, the craft, for 3 days. And you go to another school for 2 days, where you learn the theory and economics for the trade that you're learning.
Okay. I have a question about this. So once you completed, you're 18 and you completed this, then I have heard also that there are these masters that kids study. For example, if you want to be repairing bikes, then they become like a master of repairing bikes, which is not an easy thing to achieve. But once you achieve this, you have a highly credited craftsmanship that you get very well paid for.
So what you're referring to is the Meisterprüfung.
Meister,
exactly. And you're absolutely right. You need certain amount of years to actually even be able to take the Meisterprüfung, and that it would be the highest, most accredited title or degree that you can have, which allows you to, for example, lead the workshop of a bike repair shop. But that now we're shifting.
We're shifting, but kind of like to complete this track, that even if you decide to, or a kid decides to go in this path, it can still kind of advance their education in a way to become a Meister at
something. Absolutely. But what I said, there's controversy versus the recommendation of a teacher saying maybe the Hauptschule would be the better school for a child, but the parents have the idea of, but I would like my child to study. That sometimes clashes.
You mean study intellectually?
Study at a university, sorry.
At a university,
yes,
okay.
So the students that do vocational training and the Ausbildung, they are usually referred to as Auszubildende, or short Azubis. So in any German company, you will most likely come across Azubis, and now you know what they actually go through at the moment.
And I must say they're not always tied to like hand work. For example, in a telecommunications company I worked at, we had Azubis as well, because you can also be an IT vocational trained.
Correct, and that goes to the second track of education that we're going into, with the second type of school would be the Realschule. And the Realschule typically starts...
It's the real Schule. It's real school, sorry.
Typically starts at grade 5 and goes until grade 10, so one more year than the Hauptschule. And here the degree that you get is the Realschulabschluss, or the Mittlere Reife, or the Fachoberschulreife. Tons of German words for it, but that's how, they describe this degree. And the Realschule pretty much has a more challenging curriculum than the Hauptschule, but less challenging than the Gymnasium. Typically, students can choose like one focus area of science or a foreign language. And like you just mentioned earlier, after you finish Realschule, you can also go into the vocational training. Here, typically more in the trades industry, of IT, of economics. So a little bit more intellectual and less
handworky,
manual.
Manual, yeah. Okay.
When you finish Realschule and you as a parent and as a student, of course, decide that you would like to continue your education in high school, then you can do so. You can transfer to a gymnasium to get your education to be allowed kind of like to go to the university. If your grades permit and kind of like your teachers and the schools agree upon.
Okay, that's super interesting. So you can still go to the Realschule to kind of maintain your options open in a way, and then after that you complete that, you can decide, actually I do want to go to the university, and then you can make the jump to the gymnasium.
Correct, yes.
That's pretty cool. Okay.
You can also choose to do volunteering afterwards to kind of like give back to society, or to learn a little bit more about yourself, what profession you'd like to learn. So after Realschule, your options are pretty wide open. And also very important, if you do the Realschulabschluss and then you do an Ausbildung, and which takes 2 to 3 years, and then you do 2 to 3, you get 2 to 3 years of work experience, you can still attend a
university,
the higher education, usually a university of applied science, in German called Fachhochschule, to get a university degree. And that is actually quite common. If you don't feel ready to study at the in high school age, but you do feel like you would like to get that higher degree as a young adult, you can still do so with the work experience. And usually that combination is very liked in the companies and the job market, also because you have both theory and practical knowledge.
Yeah, you already have the work experience as a young person versus just a student. Versus a full-time student that has pretty much no work experience at that moment, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so then that leads to the third track that you can choose of this third stage, which is the gymnasium.
Which is the gymnasium, exactly. Which is, again, all three of those are the high school, right? That you mostly refer to. And the gymnasium is the most popular type, I would say. Most students attend the gymnasium, and the gymnasium is the most intellectual high school level in that sense, which prepares students to attend university. So the gymnasium goes from grade 5 in Berlin and Brandenburg, grade 7, until the grade 12 or 13, depending on the state you're in and the year you're looking into attending school. Why am I phrasing it so weirdly? Because just as a quick exit here, there has been a reform in the 2000s in Germany. Traditionally, the gymnasium always had 13 grades. However, that would mean that students usually finish school around 19. And that would be like around a year later than European students and
other European students.
And to make the German students more competitive, there was this beautiful reform saying, hey, let's cut 1 year of the gymnasium, keep the same curriculum, and then our students will be competitive because they have the same age.
That backfired, I'm pretty sure.
Obviously, that doesn't work to keep the same curriculum and cut it down by a year. Students, teachers, and parents were completely overwhelmed, so much so that I would say a lot of states have already reverted to the 13 years. Some are still on like both levels. I'm just saying this because you might hear when you look into schools the terms of G9.
Which is 13 years.
Which refers to 9 years in high school, so 13 years. Yeah. Or G8, which refers to the 12 years.
Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting, okay.
Let's go back to the gymnasium.
Yeah.
Usually you can also find like focus schools.
Okay.
Some schools focus on sports, some on science, some of arts, some on music. For example, the school that I attended was a focus school for music and sports.
Oh, okay.
And there you would also have like your special classes and special areas.
Oh, that's super cool. And you also told me that in these kind of schools, if you have a competition somewhere, then they are more understanding for you to attend these competitions and that you might need to skip a class or something because of the sport activity.
I mean, depending a little bit on your grades, but you usually, because you have that focus area, that means you need to practice a lot, train a lot, and have competitions. There is a better understanding than at a not specialized school.
Yeah, okay, that's super interesting.
Correct, yeah. Generally speaking, schools in Germany are co-ed. However, there are a few gymnasiums that are purely boys and purely girls. The curriculum is a little bit more academic in that sense.
Okay.
You usually have higher math, higher science, like I had physics, chemistry, and biology. I also had like IT.
Wow, okay.
And you usually have 2 foreign languages, which for me was English, and then I chose French. Latin is still quite popular, which I didn't want to learn a dead language, and I had no interest in becoming a teacher or a doctor, for which you need the Latino.
Ah, okay. You mean the Latin, not Latino?
Well, in German it's called Latino.
Ah, okay.
And there's a big and a small one.
Ah, okay.
So if your kids are interested in those professions, then look into the Latin thing.
Interesting.
And so the higher education pretty much starts in the last 2 to 3 years, where Realschule stops and Gymnasium pretty much continues. So grade 11 is more like a preparation year.
Okay.
Where where I also went to the US, and it's kind of like also this year where you can take a foreign exchange if you like.
Okay.
And then grade 12 and 13, really you need to hustle and bustle, because those are the years that at the end of the day will also include your final grade, which you graduate with.
Ah, okay. So those are like the most important years, mainly to enter university with good grades.
Correct. And in those years, you also choose your absolute focus areas in which you will have the final exams.
Okay.
And which kind of like give you direction of your interest areas where you would like to study in the future.
Oh, that is super interesting. Yeah. Okay.
They're usually called Leistungskurse, like LK.
Wow, okay. Alles klar.
Yeah. And Leistung means achievement course.
Oh, okay, because you achieve
focus class.
Yeah. Okay.
And the degree you finish with is the famous Abitur, or the professional name, the proper German name is the Allgemeine Hochschulreife.
Wow.
Hochschule stands for higher education, like university.
Yeah.
Reife, ripeness, so you're ripe to attend a higher education school.
Super interesting. Okay. If you're liking this video, make sure to hit that like button. That really helps our channel out. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure to consider clicking that little red button down at the bottom. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can always buy us a virtual coffee at simplegermany.com/coffee. This is a small contribution that you can give to this channel just to support us a little bit more. Thanks for your support.
All right. So those were like the 3 main traditional schools and tracks in the German public school system. However,
it's not the end, because there's another twist to this whole track thing, and that is called the Gesamtschule.
Exactly. It's like a comprehensive school, which is pretty much a combination of all of the 3 tracks that we just talked about. And it goes from grade 5 to grade 13. It has actually been already like invented, created in the 60s. However, it was meant to replace the traditional tracks. However, it never actually became that popular, and currently coexists with the 3 tracks.
Okay.
And in the Gesamtschule, like I said, it combines all 3, which makes it actually easier to switch in case you need to change tracks.
That's pretty cool. And also another thing you mentioned to me is that the Gesamtschule usually has a canteen.
Correct.
Or like a cafeteria.
Yeah.
And that means then you don't have a cafeteria in the other ones?
Very good point.
Wow,
so
okay.
Usually all high schools, the traditional 3 tracks, are still only half-day schools. Like from the morning around 8 until around 1 to 3 the latest, depending how many classes and what grade you are in.
Okay.
And then you go home and you eat at home.
Yeah.
However, the Gesamtschulen are also full day schools. And there, like you said, you have cafeterias.
Okay, so yeah, also in Guatemala, you don't have cafeterias in school usually. You usually have like a tiendita, we call them, like a little kiosk where you can buy...
We also had a kiosk.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You can buy not very healthy food, and usually you would get food from home that you would snack.
Same.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's alike. Oof, at least a simple thing maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Which then let's have a look, very rough look at how a school day looks in the education system in Germany. So usually you mentioned that school starts like around at 8 and sometimes finishes at 3. And what happens in between?
Well, the 3 is the exception. I would say it rather goes until like 1:15 was my typical school end time.
Okay.
When you pretty much your 6th grade is over. Sorry, not 6th grade, 6th class.
6th class is over.
6th class is over. Because here it goes. In Germany, school classes have 45 minutes. That's still referred to a 1-hour school class, but it's 45 minutes. Sometimes you would say you have a Doppelstunde, so you have a double lesson. That would mean 90 minutes. And typically you have 6 per day with 2 big breaks, die große Pause.
Yeah, or recesses, I think it's called in the US. Yeah. Receso in Spanish. So what about the classmates? You also mentioned that you remain with your same class or your same classmates every year?
Correct, yes. So typically you are assigned to a class. Usually you have like the grade number, like if you're in the erste Klasse, like in the 1st grade, you have like the grade 1 and then the class A, B, C, D.
In Guatemala we have the same, yeah.
So, and
what class were you in?
I was going to say, and then sometimes, what are you, the A, the B, or the C? And typically they would have like different meanings. So I was in the A.
Okay. I was in the F.
And then, for example, in my school, the C class was the music class.
In my school, the F class was the nerdy class.
So you're in the nerd class.
Yeah.
I was in the cool class.
Yeah, cool.
Now, anyways, so you have a fixed class that you, in primary school, you remain in the same class, usually for the entire time.
Okay.
And high school, you from grade 5 till 10, you also remain in the same class the entire time.
Okay.
And you have one lead teacher, der Klassenlehrer, who usually changes every 3 years roundabout.
Okay.
Yes. The only time you would leave that fixed class body is for like selective classes. For example, I chose French as my second language, others chose Latin. Then obviously we split. Like there you can choose usually between religion and philosophy.
And then you split as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And how about then, so then you have a room where you usually spend all of your time or most of your time, and then the teachers change for every class?
Correct, yes.
Yeah,
in Germany, exactly. Each body of class has their Klassenzimmer, and then the teachers come to you.
Yeah.
They're the ones running around.
Unless you have like special things like a computer class or a sport class, which I think is fairly
common. Or a science class, exactly.
In any school, really.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's cool.
Only, I think, in the second part of Gymnasium, which is called the Sekundarstufe 2, there everything gets mixed and you no longer have the same body because you choose your focus areas. And that's a bit more you're already more adulty, so you're more responsible.
And by you body, you mean your classmates?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And we cannot talk about this without talking about the grading system in Germany, which till this day confuses me so much. Because I've had people tell me, oh, by the way, I used to get a 1 on this class. And I'd be like, bro, you really suck. And I'd be like, huh? No, I was like the best one. And then I'd be like, whoa, wait, what is 1 again? So please explain what is the grading system, please.
Okay, it's very simple.
Okay.
So you pretty much have numbers, grades from 1 to 6.
10. Why 6? Okay.
From 1 to 6. 1 being the best, 6 being the worst.
Okay.
Now we have to be just a very bit more detailed. In the 11th to 13th grade in Gymnasium, you actually go from points from 1 to 15. 15 being the best and 1 being the least.
What? Why?
Pretty much so 15 is like a 1 plus, 14 is a 1, and 13 is a 1 minus.
Whoa, okay, you lost me at 1. But anyways, talking about plus and minus, I know, for example, in the US, you have a grading system that's also a bit confusing because it's like A and to F, right? A being the best, F being the worst. And there you also have like A plus and A minus, right?
Yeah.
In Guatemala, it's very simple. It's really 1 to 100 points. It's very clear. If you have 100, you rock it. If you have 1, then why are you even in the class?
Well,
right?
We do have the same. Like the teachers have their, let's say, 100 till 90 is a 1 plus. So they do have the points, but then the grade is the 1 plus, or it's like the 15 points.
I still find that.
But that is only in the higher high school part.
Okay.
The general one, let's go back to 1 to 6.
Okay.
And 1 equals sehr gut, which is very good. 2 gut, good, and it goes down like this. We have a little table here, and that is the 1 to 6. Yeah.
Okay, and now for the tricky question. So if I have 5s, can I still pass a class?
So that depends.
Okay.
So you get your Zeugnis, and Zeugnis is pretty much your final grade paper.
Yeah.
Wow, what's the English
Your
word?
grades.
Yeah. Well,
Report card.
Report card. There you go. And you get one half term and one at the end of the year. And the one at the end of the year is the very important one.
Yeah, of course, because it's ending the year. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you have 2 5s or more, you will need to repeat the year.
Whoa. Also, if you have 1 6, I think you also have to repeat
Correct.
the year?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
2 or more 5s or 1 6 means you did not pass that year.
Okay, but you also mentioned that you get this Zeugnis or this like report card at the middle of the year, and this is kind of like an estimation of how the year is going.
Yeah.
And if you already have 2 5s at the middle of the year, or your kid already has 2 5s in the middle of the year, you need to like kind of like hustle a little bit more.
Exactly. You might need to get like Nachhilfe, like extra help in that subject.
Yeah, like tutoring or something like this. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's super interesting. And then you mentioned something about a blue card, a blue letter.
So before, I think around 6 weeks before you get the Zeugnis, if you are in danger to not make the grade, then you usually get a letter to your parents informing them, kind of like maybe let's launch the Hail Mary to, kind of like help you not get that 5.
Okay.
And those letters are sent in blue envelopes. So the moment...
Blue envelopes, not the letter itself. Okay.
But it's called blauer Brief.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, blue. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But do you get that, you said 6 weeks before getting the Zeugnis, the final Zeugnis or the middle Zeugnis?
I think it's the final Zeugnis.
Okay. So you still have a chance to like save it in a way. Now here comes the very interesting part that when you were talking to me about the education system, I found very interesting. So the gymnasium. So okay, wait. First of all, a student can repeat a school year a maximum of 2 times.
Right.
If they have to repeat it a 3rd time, then they need to change tracks.
Right.
The exception being in the gymnasium, there's 1 year that you can't do this.
Correct.
Please tell me more.
So in the gymnasium, grade 5 and 6 are pretty much orientation years to see whether the choice of the gymnasium was the right one for the student, whether like you fit the level pretty much. And grade 7 is the decisive grade pretty much.
Yeah.
Because in grade 7, you cannot repeat it. Either you make it and you continue in the gymnasium, or you don't make it and you need to go to Realschule.
Wow, so grade 7 is the grade that you definitely don't want to like fail if you want to continue in the gymnasium, of course.
Correct.
That's super interesting. What I find super cute is that if you need to repeat a school year, Germans refer to this as
sitzen bleiben,
which literally means to remain seated. Oh. I've also learned that if a student is very talented or high performing with their grades, they're able to skip a grade as long as both the teachers and the parents agree that this is in the best interest of the student. Yeah, and the student, of course, right? They also have a right to say something. But I would say, yeah, true.
If all parties involved agree that this is the best for the development, academically as well as personally.
Yeah, that is also super cool. Which I would say in any other country, this could also be a thing. Yeah. So now talking about this whole grading system and stuff, I am very curious. What is the grading system in your country? So before I moved to Germany, I didn't even know there was a 1 to 6 or 1 to 15 thing. I always thought everything was 1 to 100 or ABC as in the US. But if you have something different, please let us know in the comments below. Okay, so now let's say I have a kid who has special needs. Where would I send my kids to school in Germany?
Very good question. So Germany, unfortunately, does not have very many inclusive general schools. And typically, there are special needs schools. In Germany, they're called Förderschule or Sonderschule. And there is somewhat of a controversy around it, because having these separated schools kind of like gives the disadvantage of students with special needs to be integrated in the daily life already at an early age.
You mean that they don't have the chance to get integrated into daily life?
Yeah.
So the party doesn't end there, my friends, because besides the public school system, there are other ways of providing education for children.
Correct.
So one of them is now I would say the ones that's getting the most popularity recently, and is international schools.
That's true, yeah. And they're not only gaining popularity in terms of the expat community, but also within German families themselves. Because a lot of German families actually would like their children to get international education and to be able to study abroad or work abroad. So that's actually, very popular.
Yeah, and also maybe learn another language a little bit more intensely than in the public system, maybe.
Correct, yes.
So do I have to pay for international schools?
Yes, you typically do. International schools are private schools. That means there is most often not a tuition that you need to pay.
Okay.
Private schools means they also usually have smaller classes than in the public schools. And they are often bilingual. I mean, that's what makes them international. And they usually do not follow the German curriculum.
So in this one, you wouldn't have these 3 tracks as in the public system, right?
No, they pretty much define their own curriculum, and they also do not end with the typical German Abitur, but instead, because they're international, they end with the IB, which is the International Baccalaureate.
Of course, it's the French name, which at the end, this degree is also approved by universities, so you can, or accepted by universities in Germany as well,
Correct,
right?
yes.
So now let's talk about private schools, because international schools, I think even though they are private schools, are a bit different because they tend to be more international, as you mentioned. However, private schools tend to be 100% in German most of the time.
There are also bilingual
yeah.
private schools, but don't have the tag international school.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about that.
So private schools in Germany, to be honest, when I grew up, never played so much of a big role. I mean, I've heard of these like very few boarding schools that we have, which are private schools, but they never played a role. However, I would say in the last 2 decades, they really grew in numbers and popularity, especially like in Eastern Germany and Southern Germany. In Eastern Germany, mainly also because there are not as many public schools available. So it's not always also a choice, but more a necessity, depending on where you live.
Yeah.
And private schools still follow the German curriculum.
Okay.
However, you may have school uniform, which in public schools you don't in Germany. And as I would say in any country with a private school, yes, there is a tuition fee. And there's also an admission test, which typically in a public school you don't have.
That is super interesting. Yeah, so if you want to go to a public school, how do you get in? By your grades?
You sign up, and yes, you need to provide your Zeugnis, obviously. And no, I didn't have to do a test. I don't think so.
Super interesting, yeah. So talking about tuition, how expensive is it to go to private school?
I would still say it depends on the school itself, but it also depends on your salary, like of the parents, on what you earn, on your income. Because the German government, or the German Grundgesetz, like our basic law, that's like the constitution, defines that schooling needs to be available and accessible for everyone. Because there should not be a reason to divide society.
That is super
Or to create classes.
Yeah.
Meaning that even private schools need to stagger their tuition fee based on the income of the parents.
Wow, for me that is... Because in Guatemala, for example, it's completely the opposite. It's like the system is built to keep on dividing societies, actually. And the majority go to private schools because public schools are unfortunately not very good in education quality, but also they have a very bad rap. So, but even if you go to a private school, the quality of the school is defined by how much money your family has. So the more money you go, you're more to a more sophisticated, better education system. And the less money you go, it's still a private school, but maybe with lesser quality and a lot more problems in the system itself, right? Like maybe teachers not showing up for classes, or teachers probably, not caring about education. So I find that super interesting.
So I would say, I'm not saying that doesn't happen in Germany either. That's kind of like the school you attend to tries to define your status. I mean, obviously that happens in subtle nuances. Because the system is not perfect. Germany is not perfect by any means. But the government at least gives that guideline to avoid that from happening.
We also mentioned that there are some boarding schools, for example, that are really just for like the wealthiest families usually that they attend to.
With I would say the values they portray. Right?
Versus, but I would say a private school doesn't necessarily need to be a wealth thing.
Absolutely
Versus
not.
in Guatemala, it is kind of like a wealth thing. So I find that super interesting that everyone has the opportunity to choose really where you want to go study. So one question, do you have these different tracks as in like the Realschule, Hauptschule, and Gymnasium in private schools as well?
To be honest, I do not know.
If you are a teacher and work in a private school, please let us know if you have these different
Or if you have children in a private school.
Oh, that's also true. You would also know. Thank you very much.
But to answer your actual question, how much does private schools cost?
Yes.
I never answered it. I went around it, like I used to do. So let's look at my notes real quick. In 2016, the average tuition fee per year per child for a private school was €2,000.
Oh, that is not bad at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on your income level, but generally speaking, I was thinking
on the school and the state.
But once you listen tuition fees, for me, I have all these alarm bells because when you listen to the US numbers, it's like crazy amount of money. So 2,000, I mean, yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah. Okay, once you finish your high school, now if you would like to proceed with your studies and you have the official or like a certificate that allows you to continue to university, then you enter university.
Higher education, number 4 of this video.
Yes,
wow.
Okay, yeah.
If you stuck around until here, congratulations. Yes. Thank you so much. And we hope this was as simple as possible. Let's keep it that way.
Yes. Okay, so university.
Yes. So university, higher education in Germany is, I would say, well-renowned, especially because it is tuition free. Because I would say this is typically also the part where lots of other nations charge a lot of money.
I must give a big disclaimer because there's still a state that charges tuitions for the university, and that is Baden-Württemberg.
And that is what, like 500 euro per year?
Maybe. I don't know the numbers at the moment, but they do charge. So
yes.
The majority is tuition free, but there are some universities that still do.
So tuition free means that you still have to pay basic costs, such as
maybe books,
the semester contribution, books, and you have to pay extra if you also overstay the original time you should study.
Okay.
Because historically speaking, like in the 90s, it was quite popular to study because you get tons of other benefits, you're regarded as cool, and you just have an easy life.
You have tons of discounts everywhere.
Yeah, and you used to study for like 10 years or so.
But now you have to pay if you
That is no longer wanted. And also foreign exchange students may have to pay a fee for specific programs.
Yeah, okay, interesting. And according to this QS ranking, 12 of the universities in Germany are actually among the top 200 universities in the world.
Yeah.
Best universities, I should say. Yeah, disclaimer, yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've met friends, international friends, that have actually come to Germany to study, and they go to a full German university, which I say, wow, big kudos. And they have mentioned that before going into university, some universities provide like a year or two that is mainly just to get you to learn German fluently. And in between, you have some courses of the university that you can take. However, it gives you like a 2-year range, more or less, to learn German, to then jump fully into the full program in German.
Next to the traditional universities, also very popular in Germany are universities of applied sciences, called Fachhochschule, or FH for short. And they have a bit more of a practical curriculum and not just pure theory like typically at a regular university.
Ah, interesting. And we have also found that in the last years, actually, the number of universities students have increased by 52%.
So in the last years, you mean from 2002 to 2021. So within 20 years, the number of students doubled.
Consequently, because a lot more people are studying in the university, and as we have learned there are different tracks in Germany, then there's less skilled workers actually in Germany, which has left a gap in the industry for the people that used to go to Realschule and have a craftsmanship, right?
Correct, yeah. There's actually a bit lack of skilled trade people, which it's a beautiful profession. There's quite a lot of money in it.
Yeah.
And we need more of them. When you do attend university, there has also been kind of like a reform in the 2000s. That's kind of like the time period of reformation and education in Germany. And we used to have the degree of university called the Diplom, which was a 4-year study program.
Okay.
But that was changed to the international standard. Similar as in school, we want to be more competitive with international things.
Yeah.
And now we also have the bachelor master kind of like degrees. So bachelor in 3 years and then an additional master in an additional 1 to 2 years.
Education is one of the main reasons for a lot of internationals to move to Germany. If you want to know the 10 things I love about living in Germany, make sure to check out our video that's coming up next. Until next time, cheers!